So I will certainly not pander. And Jonathan, like, the only reason I'm here is because you are a friend. Like, what was my speaking fee?
You're not making any. First
Exactly.
of all, I'm Andrew.
You know, I want to go over a couple things because Elon Musk and Bob Iger have said some things recently, and I definitely want to cover them. So, anyways, if you guys remember, Elon Musk did a little anti-Semitism. Like, and this isn't like a calling for a ceasefire anti-Semitism. Anyway, so Elon Musk got into quite a bit of trouble over this. So, you remember when blue check marks meant something? Blue check marks don't mean shit anymore. Actually, blue check marks typically mean that you're someone I should probably ignore. But anyways, so the artist formerly known as I don't give a shit, probably asshole. Okay, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectic hatred against whites that they claim they want people to stop using against them. I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest shit about Western Jewish populations coming to the disturbing... God, I wish it wasn't cut off. Give me a moment. Let me see if I can find the full tweet here. Okay, so I don't see a picture of the tweet, but they do have quotes here. What is this? It's the New York Times. So, hatred against whites. They want to claim that they claim to want people to stop using hate against them. Jewish people are now coming to the disturbing realization that those hordes of minorities that support flooding their country don't exactly like them much. And then Elon Musk just replied, "You have spoken the truth. You have said the actual truth," which is just pure, like the whole tweet before was pure anti-Semitism, and then Elon's just going, "Yeah, cool, I'm down with it." So it's disturbing, but you know we have a video. Let's see. I actually I couldn't find the 2-minute clip except from that Star Wars girl. So we'll just be watching from hers. But yeah, this clip is insane, and it's something definitely worth talking about. And you know what? Elon Musk should probably be covered more because he is insane, very insane.
Obviously, you know that there's a public perception that, and you're clarifying this now, but there's a public perception that was part of a apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
And that's his grand reaction to advertisers pulling over his anti-Semitic remarks. So rather than, maybe say, hey, don't do anti-Semitism, he is just being a piece of shit. Get to know.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
How do you think then about the economics of X? If part of the underlying model, at least today, and maybe it needs to shift, maybe the answer is it needs to shift away from advertising. If
he's telling advertisers to fuck off, then yeah, I would hope.
If you believe that this is the one part of your business where you will be beholden to those who have this view, what do you do?
F-Y.
I understand that, but there's a reality too, right?
Is he broken? What is this?
Yes. No.
I mean, Linda Yaccarino's right here, and she's got to sell advertising.
Absolutely. So, totally. No. Actually, what this advertising boycott is going to do? It's going to kill the company.
And do you think that
and the whole world will know that those advertisers killed the company, and we will document it in great detail.
Will you document the fact that you were endorsing flat-out anti-Semitism, which is why they stopped promoting you. Seems like a good detailed document.
But those advertisers, I imagine, are going to say, we didn't kill the company.
Oh, yeah?
They're going to say...
Tell it to Earth.
But they're going to say...
Yeah, you were pushing anti-Semitism, dude. Like, holy shit.
They're going to say, Elon, that you killed the company because you said these things and that they were inappropriate things and that they didn't feel comfortable on the platform, right? That's what they're going to say.
And let's see how Earth responds to that.
He is coming off intensely like somebody in a bubble. Like he's built this little conservative bubble where he has all these conservative fanboys who will just gush over everything he fucking says. Everything. And he is like speaking to that bubble, and he seems to think that bubble is the world. And he's missing the fact that, like, what got him in trouble, like, usually, like, you know, he will say something crazy on X or Twitter, whatever. It's really Twitter. He will say something crazy, and, like, his bubble will all lap it up. A couple people call him out, and then the world moves on. The world doesn't use, like, the general public generally doesn't know. The thing where he endorsed flat-out anti-Semitism, that was on the national news. People were fucking noticing, which is why people like Bob Iger and others started pulling funding. Makes absolute sense. So, yeah, when X, and, you know, just seeing the current trajectory of X, what X, or fucking, I'm calling it X, Twitter has done since he has bought it, yeah. If it sinks, I think it's pretty clear just looking at the evidence it was you, Elon. But you know what? We brought up Bob Iger. We are also going to look at a Bob Iger interview. Oh, is it the same guy interviewing Bob Iger? That's crazy.
By the whole thing or the opposite. And I created a rigorous process to determine what is the right answer to that question. I worried that there was, in general entertainment programming, unlike Disney and Pixar and Marvel, that it's not as differentiated, maybe not as valuable. But then, through this process, determined that owning the whole thing had real value because partnering that business with the other branded streaming business, Disney Plus, could actually create a huge opportunity for us, and thus we decided to keep it rather than sell it.
Let me ask you about that IP. You just mentioned Pixar and Marvel and so many of these other things. Very recently, as you've seen, because you get the box office numbers every weekend, a number of these films have not performed. They have not performed the way they used to. People question the creative magic at Disney. You can look at the Marvels. I'm curious why you think that disappointed. You could look at Wish, Indiana Jones. What do you think? What's happened?
Well, I think you have to look at it a couple of ways. First of all, I think the movie business is changing, actually. Box office today is about 75% of what it was pre-COVID. I think we have conditioned the audience to expect that these films will be on streaming platforms.
Well, I mean, so far he's hitting some obvious points that are facts.
Relatively quickly, and that the experience of accessing them and watching them in the home is better than it ever was. One, easier to access in terms of the technology. Right. Two, just the visuals, you know, better sets in your living room than before. And a bargain when you think about it. Streaming Disney Plus you can get for $7 a month. That's a lot cheaper than taking your whole family to a film. So I think the bar is now raised in terms of quality about what gets people out of their homes into movie theaters. Some of it is just being part of basically the social wave. Certainly Barbie and Oppenheimer did that for two other studios. And so I think that's one thing. Second, in our particular case, and specifically about those films, some of those films, they were not as good, they were not as high in quality, not every one that you mentioned, as some of their predecessors, our films, and as they should have been, particularly in this environment.
Why do you think that was?
Well, The Marvels was shot during COVID. There wasn't as much supervision on the set, so to speak, where we have executives there really looking over what's being done day after day after day. And that was a result of, mostly of COVID, but at the same time, we increased our output tremendously to feed the streaming.
I'm sorry. The idea that more executives being on the set would help, Marvel's just, honestly, like I've said before, as someone who wasn't a fan of Marvel's, I think it just needs some basic reshoots, some basic rewrites that it couldn't do during the strikes. That's what I think that would have gone a long way for the Marvels. More character moments between the big three, and a bit more development into your villain, and you got a really great movie.
Platforms. Too much, by the way.
Mistake.
Definite mistake. Quality needs attention to deliver quality. It's not.
Well, quality needs attention, but then you're also proposing that more executives be on set supervising stuff. You want more creatives to help with quality. You don't want executives. You don't need businessmen helping with quality.
It doesn't happen by accident. And quantity, in our case, diluted quality.
I mean, there's some stuff he's saying that is accurate. Like, yeah, I actually felt like they did kind of okay with quality. It wasn't perfect, obviously, but there was a quality issue, and there was so much quality, and like it got to a point where like there is a lot of Marvel stuff that doesn't feel as special. Like it used to be kind of like an event. Oh, the new Marvel thing's out. Let's check it out. Now it's come out so often that it just kind of happens. It's like, oh yeah, Loki's out. I remember Loki season 2 coming out. I did not rush to watch it. I used to always rush to watch that stuff, and now Loki season 2 comes out. I'm not rushing to watch it. And you know what? Like, say what you will about the beginning of Loki season 2, that season ended with a banger. Like, that was so goddamn good.
And Marvel suffered greatly from that. So there are different reasons, and I'm the first, I've been very public about it, saying, I would say right now my number one priority is to help the studio turn around creatively. Now, let's also put it in perspective. We set the bar so high. Year after year after year, we had the best performance in the business, probably for a decade. And I'm not sure another studio will ever achieve some of the numbers that we achieved with multiple. I mean, we got to the point where if a film didn't do $1 billion in global box office, we were disappointed. That's an unbelievably high standard. And I think we have to get more realistic. A couple of the films you mentioned, by the way, which is interesting about kind of the New World Order, did okay at the box office. Elemental's a good example, about $500 million at the box office. By the way, to some studios, that would be a gigantic hit. When Disney has a $500 million film, it's a failure, which is interesting. But then it went on Disney Plus and had massive consumption. Right. So that says something. Maybe people didn't perceive it was the kind of film they needed to see in the theaters, but they certainly, when they discovered it on Disney Plus, enjoyed it.
Let me ask you about this, about franchises and the value of IP. I don't think
so far, like, he's mostly said stuff that I largely agree with, but like, yeah, obviously his take on executives is bad.
Most people have ever read this letter, so I'm going to read it aloud if I could. This was a letter written in 1966 by Walt Disney, the man himself. It was 2 months before dying from lung cancer. He was a heavy smoker. And he wrote this to shareholders about what he said makes us tick here at the Disney organization. He said, many people have asked, why don't you make another Mary Poppins? Well, by nature, I'm a born experimenter. To this day, I don't believe in sequels. I can't follow popular cycles. I have to move on to new things. There are many new worlds to conquer. As a matter of fact, people have been asking us to make sequels ever since Mickey Mouse first became a star. We have bowed only on one occasion to the cry to repeat ourselves. Back in the 30s, the Three Little Pigs was an enormous hit, and the cry went out, give us more pigs. I could not see how we could possibly top Pigs with Pigs. But we tried, and I doubt whether any one of you reading this can name the other cartoons in which the pigs appeared. We didn't make the same mistake with Snow White. When it was a huge hit, the shout went up for more dwarfs. Top dwarfs, why try? Right now, we're not thinking about making another Mary Poppins. We never will. Perhaps there'll be other ventures with equal critical and financial success, but we know we cannot hit a home run with the bases loaded every time we go to the plate. We also know the only way we can even get to first base is by constantly going to bat and continuing to swing. What would Walt think now?
I'm going to talk to him later. Maybe I'll let you know. I actually think about that a lot. We about 5 years ago, we put Walt's office back together again as it existed the day he passed. We had saved everything that was in it, and there had been photographs taken of everything, including...
Oh, yeah. I remember Mary Poppins Returns. It wasn't a great movie, but it was cool to see Dick Van Dyke again, and Emily Blunt was a really good Mary Poppins. Like, really fucking good.
the order of the books on the shelves, and we decided, kind of out of respect for him, we would just return it to what it looked like then. Interesting, you mentioned he was a smoker. It's filled with ashtrays. Wherever you go, there's an ashtray. And every once in a while, I go in, not to smoke, by the way, I don't smoke, but I go into his office just to sort of feel the presence. I know that sounds a little weird, but it's kind of a nice way to relax and appreciate the legacy of the company. And the first thing you really realize if you study Walt is that Walt was unbelievable at adapting to change. First of all, he loved technology. He loved to use technology. And he also knew that the world was not a static place. That was true for his theme parks. That was true for his movies, for television, everything that he did. He was a true innovator. An innovator is someone who never stands still. Now, when that quote, I think you at one point read it to me, and I think we had just done a sequel to Mary Poppins. I thought, wow, this is good timing. I think I don't want to apologize for making sequels. Some of them have done extraordinarily well, and they've been good films too. I think there has to be a reason to make them. You have to have a good story. And often the story doesn't hold up it's not as strong as the original story. That can be a problem, but it just has to have a reason. You have to have a reason to make it beyond commerce. There has to be an artistic reason to make it. And we've made too many. It doesn't mean we're not going to continue to make them. We're making a number of them now, right, as a matter of fact, including to some of our best films, but we will only greenlight a sequel if we believe the story that the creators want to tell is worth telling.
Do you think then you can make originals, or do you think that the franchise...
I am interested in the answer to this next question, but I'll be blunt, that answer comes off pretty standard corporate speak. Essentially, he can like spit out an answer like that and then just, do whatever the fuck he wants behind the scenes with the sequels. Hey, if they'll make a buck, I'll spit it out there. So like, and I know, not even saying I disagree. Like, yeah, when you do a sequel, make sure you have a good story and all that stuff. But like, it's literally something he can say, and there's not going to be anything to reinforce it whatsoever. He can just do whatever he wants.
This game is still the only.
And like, I don't really throw Marvel under the bus, even though they've had some lackluster sequels, simply because they're a comic book franchise. So like, they're meant to be ongoing stories. And not everyone will be a banger. But like, as far as lackluster sequels, not even the Mary Poppins sequel, which didn't thrill me. I already said that didn't thrill me. But like, that one had good moments. Like, I could get behind why you make it. For no other reason to debut the fact that Emily Blunt can kill it as Mary Poppins. That might be worth it. But like, Toy Story 4 was a little lackluster. The real lackluster one that drove me nuts was Incredibles 2. Like, Brad Bird made such a huge deal about not wanting to do an Incredibles sequel unless he had a really great story. So here comes Incredibles 2, and like, I'm expecting, oh wow, this has gotta be great, right? And it was, like, it's not terrible, but it's kind of forgettable nowhere, and it's like, where's this great story that we were expecting? And then you learn, oh yeah, there was this deal where they had, when Disney officially bought Pixar, they put a mandate to do so many sequels. Kind of lame.
Game that's going to work.
Well, I think it has to be a blend. It has to be a blend. You can't just resort to everything that you've made. Although I will say that the risk is sometimes less when you start with a sequel because it is some known value. We're making one of Toy Story, for instance.
What would Walt think of sports? You're trying to figure out what to do with ESPN. Would he like that you have sports, or would he be telling you, you got to do something else?
I think Walt would love sports. Sports is just phenomenal entertainment for him, as unpredictable as it gets. And it's interesting in today's world with as many choices as people have. Look at how sports has stood tall in a sea of unbelievable choice.
I want to ask you about the deal that you say you're trying to negotiate, and there's lots of news reports about different folks, leagues you're talking to, technology you're talking to, about getting a minority investment in here. This is Rich Greenfield. Who asked the following. He says, we do not understand how any of these ideas, investment ideas, would solve ESPN's number one problem. The cost of sports rights is rising faster than revenues.
Okay, are we just going to be on to sports now? Does he bring up Marvel again? Let's see.
In requesting a board seat again. But what I said in that interview in July, he was not on my mind at all. There was nothing.
He's now in your mind.
There was nothing about what I said then that was in any way related to whether he was going to return as an activist or not.
Can we talk about the activism? So he has now partnered with Ike Perlmutter, who used to work with you. You bought Marvel from him. What do you make of that? Do you think this is personal? Do you think that this is, what is this?
This is not a headline that I'm going to create right now. The board has an obligation to listen to investors. Ike, with Nelson, represent a certain amount of shares of our stock. I'm certain that the board will hear them out in terms of what their plans or what their ideas are. That's obviously
okay, let me ask a culture question.
As you reminded me and the audience, I have a lot to do. I'm not going to get distracted by any of that. In discussing with the board how to best contend with activists, the one thing that is very, very clear that I have actually requested is, fine, we have to obviously contend with them in some form, but don't force me to take my eye off the ball and lose focus in terms of managing the company.
If they get on the board, does that affect you and your ability to keep your eye on the ball? Meaning, is culturally people?
Oh my God, activist is such a quote, like a nebulous word. What do you mean by activist? Jesus.
People are always trying to figure out, do you just let somebody on the board because maybe that shuts them up? Or if you let them on the board, it infects the whole thing? What do you think?
Here's what I think. The Disney board, if you look into a person, is a collection of very talented, very experienced people that know a lot about business and the world, that bring to our boardroom a level of expertise and an input and an ability to basically either challenge me on some of my thinking and my decisions, or support me, or actually help me execute when possible and give me advice. And there's a qualification level that is required to sit on the Disney board. And the board will make, not me, the board makes decisions about who's qualified and who isn't qualified to be on the board. And if Nelson officially requests a board seat, I'm sure the board will go through a process to determine whether he is, or whether he should have a role on the board or not. But it's not like we've got, a number of empty seats. Come on in, join the Disney board. Have fun, have at it, help us make sequels.
Let me ask you a different question. And maybe it's a political question. We were talking about ESG earlier this morning with Jamie Dimon. Part of what happened while you were gone.
Real quick, if you guys aren't familiar, ESG, environmental social governance, it's essentially it's a thing a company can do kind of at the end of the year to show what they've done that's like environmentally conscious, socially conscious, and brag about it to their investment holders. And they, and the investment holders can say, oh, they've done so and so and so. Okay, I'll invest in this company. It is something that the chuds, the anti-fans love to trot out whenever you point out that, like, so and so made money. Well, they don't care about money. They care about ESG more than money. It's like woke points to them, and like they miss the point that like the whole reason why they even do ESG is for money. It's all about the money.
From the company was a number of films that were greenlit that people were describing as woke, with, quote, woke characters, a fight with DeSantis. By the time you got back, and I don't know if people saw images of this, there was a morning outside of Disney World where there were folks literally with flags, swastika flags, and DeSantis flags, anti-gay flags, and guns.
Yes.
As families are trying to walk into the park.
Yep.
I'm so curious what you think has happened and how you as a company are supposed to deal with that, and what you feel like you can say and can't say given this remarkably polarized climate we're in right now.
You're talking about our content itself, or just positions the company takes on issues?
Both. Meaning, do you fight with DeSantis? Do you create LGBT characters?
So complicated. Well, let me start with content and your comment about woke characters. Our primary objective in creating content as a company, say for ABC News, which is obviously to inform, but is to entertain. Whether it's sports, whether it's Disney, whether it's Marvel, make things that entertain people. And the good news is there's a marketplace out there that demands entertainment. It's a fantastic business to be in because of that. I think what had happened over a period of time, it was building and building, and maybe I think it reached a peak of some sort while I was gone, is that creators lost sight of what their number one objective needed.
Oh my God, what is he doing? What is he fucking doing? Oh God.
To be. Often when we entertain, and we've entertained as a company over the 100 years we've been in business, we have entertained with values and having a positive impact on the world in many different ways. I'd use Black Panther as a great example of that, just in terms of fostering acceptance, or the movie Coco, which Pixar did about the Day of the Dead. I like being able to do that. Entertain, and if you can infuse it with positive messages and have a good impact on the world, fantastic. But that should not be the objective. When I came back, what I've really tried to do is to return to our roots, which is, remember, we have to entertain first. It's not about messages. If you can do, again, if your story can have a positive impact, so there's that. And I've worked hard since I've been back.
I'm not gonna lie, I can't believe he's giving credit, like, by addressing it like this, he's giving credibility to their fucking arguments. It's such very frustrating. And I imagine they're gonna clip this and be like, Bob Iger's our hero, and also clip Elon Musk saying fuck Bob Iger and be like, yeah, fuck Bob Iger, because like these guys have no standards. But like, Bob, like, if you're going to talk about this, can you at least name some examples of movies where you feel like the message overrode the story? Like, give me some examples. Because, like, otherwise, we're just talking about movies where women or minorities are in leads or major characters. And there's nothing wrong with that. And, like, you're giving it way... Maybe we'll see if he brings it together, but he's giving it way too much fucking credibility. Like, these people yell woke at fucking everything, and you're, like, treating it like it's actually something to address.
Reminding the creative community, who are our partners, in some cases our employees, that that's the objective. And I don't really want to tolerate the opposite. So there's that. When it comes time to taking positions about issues, I have tried really hard over the years, and I'm not calling them politics, because a lot of them are not politics. Sometimes it's what is right and what is wrong. When it comes time to taking positions, I have tried really hard to apply a standard that is relevant to it asks, is this relevant to the company, to our people, to our company, to our shareholders? That's a very important test. So if we take a position on the environment, we care about the health of our planet, it's because we believe that if the planet is not healthy, it will be bad for our business. People are not going to go to theme parks if they can't breathe the air, as a for instance. That's not politics, that's business. So if anyone has accused us of being political when it comes to that, they're just dead wrong. I could argue the same thing. Interesting to listen to the vice president about immigration. We have over 200,000 employees. We rely on a workforce that...
This bit is better, but like that beginning bit, like that was really bad. They will clip the shit out of it and run with it.
Is talented, motivated, interested in working for our company. The more diverse it is, the better off we are.
I mean, he should have just opened up when like, you know, oh, okay, you want to talk about wokeness? Here's what I'm going to tell you about. I'm going to tell you about how just like, you know, being environmental is good because we want a world to live in. That like seeing women in positions of power is good because women can be in positions of power. And so it's good to normalize that. There's a whole bunch of stuff he could say, but that garbly gook he did at the beginning was really bad.
More experience so a robust immigration policy is something that actually is pro-business for us, as a for instance. There are times when there are subjects that maybe we should not comment on because they're not relevant, unless they are of such importance to the world. For instance, I think commenting about terrorist acts is perfectly reasonable for the CEO of a large company. When, by the way, I think, you know, it's interesting when you think about the world and who people listen to and what they expect of leaders. And I just think that there's a time and a place for companies to weigh in on issues. And it's actually something that I think CEOs get paid to do.
Let me ask you this.
You see, this is the time, like a lot of his stuff is kind of okay, but there's definitely slip-ups. And I think on something like this, the best thing to do, and because he's hedging a lot of this with, if our stockholders are cool with it, then okay. As a CEO, my job is to look after stockholders. What the best way to actually handle this, and actually the best way to handle it for your stockholders, is say, listen, as a company, we're going to do the right thing. We're just going to, do what we think is the right thing to do and move forward from there. Have some balls with it, even if you're not going to actually do it.
We have to make decisions like that.
So you made a decision to suspend advertising recently on X.
Yeah, we should just finish. Can I just come back to one thing regarding Governor DeSantis in Florida? The position that we took with Governor DeSantis in Florida was simply this. The company, while I was gone, decided to take a position against the Don't Say Gay bill that was moving through the Florida legislature. I won't comment about what I would have done or not done, but the company took that position against it. The governor decided, he got very, very angry at the company when it took that position and decided to punish the company by basically stripping it of, first he wanted to strip essentially the entity that manages the property that Disney World is on, and then he decided that was impractical, so he would just take out the board and put his own board in. We felt that was a direct result of the company having exercised its right to free speech, taking the position against the Don't Say Gay bill, and that punishing us for exercising our right to free speech was anti-American and anti-business. And I felt that it was really important for us to stand up for our rights and simply ask the question. It wasn't even about the Don't Say Gay bill at that point. It was.
I hate the fact that as a company that he can actually make the point that a company has free speech and have it be legally valid. I hate Citizens United. That being said, yeah, it's like they were under pressure to back the Don't Say Gay bill, and they crumbled. Like, he will try to pitch it like we are doing the morally right thing. If you remember your history, Disney got pressured to do the right thing, which, I mean, they did. They did.
It's about, does a company have a right to free speech? And if it exercises that right to free speech, it should not face a retribution because it has done so. And that's what we thought was going on. So there's a lawsuit that we filed that is very specific to that. It has nothing to do with...
Have you talked to the governor about this?
No, I have not.
You want to?
I offered at some point through intermediaries the ability to have a conversation with him, but he did not take me up on that offer.
I mentioned X, and we're going to see Elon Musk in a little bit. Mm-hmm. You stopped advertising on X.
We did.
Tell us about that decision.
I have a lot of respect for Elon and what he's accomplished, and not just one business, but a few businesses. And we know Elon is larger than life in many respects, and that his name is very much tied to the companies he either has founded or he owns, whether it's Tesla, or SpaceX, SpaceX, or now X. Mm-hmm. And by him taking the position that he took in quite a public manner, we just felt that the association with that position and Elon Musk and X was not necessarily a positive one for us, and we decided we would pull our advertising. And we are now allowing entities at the company to use X as a platform to communicate. ABC News is a good example of that. ESPN, another. We use it.
But do you anticipate this is forever?
I haven't readdressed it since the decision was made.
Do you find it a good advertising platform?
We've reached people on a lot of social media platforms. It's become in general, social media has become an effective way for us to communicate, whether it's marketing message or otherwise. Specifically, I don't want to be specific about X itself.
We got to run, but let me ask you one last thing about China. You have a big business in China.
We have a good business in China.
You have a good business in China. We've been talking all morning about the threat that China may or may not pose.
I think the Musk thing was interesting because, honestly, Bob Iger gave the businessman answer, and fucking Elon's just like, fuck Bob Iger. But yeah, I am interested to see what they say exactly about China. We got 3 minutes left.
In the future to the United States, to Taiwan. We heard from the president of Taiwan this morning. What is your sense of the risk of something going wrong and the risk to your business? How do you think about that? Would you ever create a second park in China, given everything that's going on, for example?
First of all, when we look at the world, and we are a global company, it's pretty important in terms of growth to establish our businesses in the two most populous countries in the world, India and China. Obviously very different markets. And because, not prior to the last few years, but over the last few decades, because of regulation, our access to that market was somewhat limited. Certainly can't own media, including streaming platform, television channels we couldn't own. And so when we looked at our alternatives in terms of how best to enter that market, building a theme park seemed like a great idea. Because even though, only tens of millions of people can go there versus billions, if we built it right, which we did, and it became an experience that the people of China love, it would be an extremely positive step for our company. And that's, in fact, what we accomplished. We built a fantastic theme park, opened in 2016, on property that we can expand on. I'm actually very proud of the fact that we did it, because entering the market from other directions was almost an impossibility. So it turned out to be a nicely profitable business for us with some growth prospects. If you're asking me whether I'm as optimistic as I once was about growing our business in China, the answer would be no. I think it's pretty obvious that issues between our countries, tensions, have had an impact on business, not just Disney's, but on other companies as well. And so I'm bullish about Disneyland in Shanghai. And I believe that we will end up expanding that park relatively soon. I guess there's, to some extent, additional risk associated, but not all the capital that we put in is ours. We have a partner there, and so some of the risk is shared with a local entity. I'm not losing sleep over the risk that we're taking there at this point, but again, I think I'm somewhat sobered about the prospects of our company and other companies long term.
Okay. The China stuff was kind of nowhere. But yes, there was definitely some missteps by him. I don't know if they're missteps or did he want to give the Chuds ammunition? Because he definitely fucking did. Yeah. That's the thing. The lion's share of his answers I actually thought were fine. But there's these things where it's more executives. What we need was more executives on the Marvel set overseeing everything. Maybe not.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.